Amelia Moretti had always known that being born into a mafia family came with chains, chains invisible to the eye, yet heavy enough to bend anyone's spirit. But she never imagined those chains would lead her to this moment, standing in a sunlit bridal suite high above the city, staring at a wedding dress she never chose. Made of delicate ivory lace and crystal-beaded tulle, it shimmered as if mocking her. Beautiful, regal, luxurious, and utterly foreign to the life she wanted. As her fingers brushed over the fabric, Amelia felt the quiet tremor of her pulse in her wrist. She wasn't meant for this world. Not the violence, not the politics, not the arranged alliances sealed behind closed doors. She wanted to paint, to breathe freely, to walk through museums without bodyguards at her heels. She wanted peace, not power. But peace had never been an option for a Moretti daughter, especially not when her family's fragile truce with the Romanos, the dominant mafia clan of the Southern Territories, was on the verge of collapsing. And so her fate became a transaction. The room felt too still, too quiet, too suffocating as her mother fixed the final touches on the veil. "You'll learn to love him," her mother murmured, though the words sounded rehearsed, brittle, as if she didn't believe them herself. Amelia didn't respond. She kept her eyes lowered, watching the faint trembling of her hands. She had met Lorenzo Romano only twice, both times under watchful eyes and spoken expectations. He had said little, observing her with calm, unreadable intensity. A man of power, discipline, and silence. A man who could command a room without speaking a single word. A man she was expected, forced to marry within hours. A knock on the door jarred the quiet. Amelia's father entered, his expression tired and lined with the weight of too many decisions made for survival. "It's time," he said gently, though firmness coated every syllable. Amelia felt that familiar ache, resentment and love tangled together, because she knew he wasn't a cruel man. He was just a man trapped by a world that demanded sacrifices. And today, she was the sacrifice. As she walked toward the hallway, her breath came shallow, her vision blurring at the edges. Flowers, security guards, murmurs from relatives, everything melted into a haze. Then she reached the grand corridor that led to the ceremony hall, and her steps faltered. The ornate double doors stood ahead, carved with gold filigree, the final barrier between her and the life she never wanted. Amelia's heart pounded so violently she felt it in her fingertips. She whispered, barely audible even to herself, "I don't want this." Her father hesitated. For a moment she saw the crack in his resolve, but then he nodded toward the guards, signaling them to open the doors. And just like that, Amelia's last plea vanished in the echo of hinges swinging wide. The hall glittered in cascades of light. Hundreds of faces turned toward her, the air thick with expectations and murmured admiration. Amelia forced a slow breath. Her legs felt like stone as she stepped inside. Her vision steadied only when she finally saw him, Lorenzo Romano, standing at the altar, dressed in a tailored black suit that exuded effortless command. His dark eyes held her in place, not with force, but with something unexpected, almost anchoring, something that made her heart stumble, something that whispered that maybe this man, this stranger she was being bound to, wasn't as cold as his reputation. But the moment that truly unnerved her, the moment that sealed itself in her memory, was when his gaze softened ever so slightly, a shift so subtle she would have missed it if she hadn't been staring directly at him, a softness that said, "I see you." And for a heartbeat, Amelia wondered if destiny was not as cruel as she had believed, but far more complicated. Little did she know, this wedding, unwanted as it was, would become the beginning of a story neither of them ever expected. The reception hall glowed with warm golden chandeliers, soft music drifting through the air like a delicate spell meant to hide the tension running beneath every smile. Amelia sat beside Lorenzo at the elegantly decorated head table, her posture straight but her nerves fraying at the edges. She could feel the weight of the room: powerful families, loyal soldiers, political allies, all watching, judging, whispering. Every glance was a reminder that this wedding was not a celebration of love, but a negotiation of power. Yet beside her, Lorenzo remained composed, almost unreadably calm. His presence was steady, unshakable, like a mountain standing against a storm. Amelia wasn't sure if it comforted her or terrified her. He leaned slightly toward her, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You haven't eaten anything." Amelia blinked, surprised he noticed. "I'm not hungry," she replied softly, keeping her hands folded in her lap so no one would see the faint tremble in her fingers. Lorenzo studied her for a moment, really studied her, and she felt that strange rush of awareness again, the same one that had swept through her when she walked down the aisle. His eyes weren't cold, not like she'd feared. They were assessing, thoughtful, even gentle in certain flickers. "They'll expect us to dance soon," he murmured. "If you feel faint, tell me." His tone wasn't commanding, it was careful, considerate, completely at odds with the ruthless image the world claimed he had. Amelia looked ahead, watching the guests toast and laugh, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her. She felt trapped between what she wanted and what was required of her. And yet with Lorenzo sitting so close, she sensed something she didn't expect: safety. A strange, quiet kind that seeped into her despite her fear. Before she could think further, an older Romano matriarch approached their table with a warm, regal smile. "The couple must dance," she declared, her voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Applause rippled through the hall as Lorenzo arose and extended his hand to Amelia. Her heartbeat stumbled. She hesitated, her breath catching, but his expression softened, as if silently telling her, "I'll make sure you're all right," and so she placed her trembling hand into his palm. He guided her gently to the center of the dance floor where the lights dimmed and the first notes of a slow, romantic melody began to play. The crowd faded into shadows as Lorenzo carefully placed one hand at her waist and held her other hand in a secure, steady grip. Amelia inhaled sharply at the sudden closeness. She had expected coldness, stiffness, indifference. Instead, his touch was warm, grounding, almost protective. "You're shaking," he whispered, his breath brushing her ear as they moved in slow, graceful steps. "Is it fear or nerves?" Amelia lowered her gaze, ashamed to admit the truth. "Both," she murmured. Lorenzo's jaw tightened, not in anger but in frustration, as if he wanted to shield her from every reason she had to tremble. "No one will hurt you," he said quietly. "Not while you're mine." The word "mine" made her stomach twist, not with fear, but with something she couldn't name. The music swelled around them, romantic and haunting, and for the first time that evening, Amelia allowed herself to breathe. Lorenzo wasn't forcing her to smile, wasn't demanding closeness. He was simply there, present, steady. She felt the tension in her shoulders ease just slightly as he guided her through the dance with effortless grace, as if he had spent a lifetime learning how to move with someone who needed gentleness. When the song ended, applause filled the hall. Amelia stepped back instinctively, but Lorenzo didn't release her hand. His thumb brushed gently over her knuckles, a gesture so unexpected, so tender, that she froze. "You handled that well," he murmured, his voice warm. "Better than most who are thrown into this life." She looked up at him then, truly looking, and for the first time she realized something startling. Lorenzo didn't want a prisoner. He didn't want a silent, obedient wife. His eyes held a question, a quiet, patient one, almost as if he wanted to understand her, not own her. Before she could respond, a gunshot cracked through the hall. Screams erupted instantly, glass shattered, guests ducked under tables, the air filled with panic and fear. Without hesitation, Lorenzo pulled Amelia into his arms, shielding her with his body as more shots echoed from the entrance. His voice, low and fierce, vibrated against her ear. "Stay close to me. I won't let anything happen to you." And in that chaotic, terrifying moment, while danger raged around them, Amelia felt the truth settle deep inside her heart. This marriage wasn't going to be anything she imagined. Not with Lorenzo Romano. Not with the way he held her, as if protecting her was the only thing that mattered. Chaos erupted like a wildfire, spreading through the reception hall. The once elegant wedding venue now filled with screams, overturned chairs, shattering crystal, and frantic movement. Amelia clung instinctively to Lorenzo's coat as he shielded her with his body, guiding her behind a pillar near the corner of the room. His grip was firm, but not painful, protective, urgent, and absolutely unyielding. She could hear the thundering rhythm of his heartbeat as he pressed her close, his breath warm against the side of her head. "Stay down," he murmured, voice steady despite the danger. The calmness in his tone was extraordinary, and it grounded her somehow, even as terror clawed at her chest. Gunmen in black masks rushed the entrance, firing toward the Romano men and anyone who got in the way. The air filled with the acrid scent of gunpowder. Amelia's vision blurred with tears as she tried to make sense of what was happening. "Who are they?" she whispered, trembling. Lorenzo didn't look away from the scene, his eyes sharp with calculation. He said quietly, "Someone who wants to send a message." Then he shifted, slightly lowering his head to meet her gaze. "But you are not part of that message. Not today." His words were both terrifying and comforting, a reminder of the world she had married into, but also a promise that she was not alone. His men surged forward, forming a protective barrier around the newlyweds. Lorenzo stood slowly, pulling her up with him, keeping her behind his shoulder as he relocated them toward the back exit. "We need to move," he said. Amelia nodded shakily, trusting him because she had no other choice, but also because there was something undeniably steady in the way he held her. Even as bullets struck the walls and chaos intensified, Lorenzo remained composed, issuing commands in a low, controlled tone. His authority cut through the noise like a blade. The men around him obeyed instantly, creating a clear path. He guided her through the corridor leading to a private service area, his hand never leaving hers. With every step, Amelia felt the reality of her new life sinking deeper into her bones. This world was dangerous, ruthless, unpredictable, and she was now a part of it, bound by vows, forced by circumstance, protected by a man she didn't yet understand. When they reached a more secluded hallway, Lorenzo finally paused. His hand gently brushed a fallen curl from her cheek. "Are you hurt?" he asked, softly. The softness in his voice startled her. She shook her head, just scared. His expression shifted. Something softened, something almost pained. "I know," he whispered. "I'm sorry your wedding night turned into this." For a moment they stood there, two strangers bound by fate, thrown into a storm neither of them chose. Amelia felt the weight of his apology, genuine and unexpected. It tugged at something deep inside her. Before she could respond, a Romano soldier ran toward them. "Boss, we've secured the eastern wing," he reported. Lorenzo nodded. "Good. Get the car ready." The man sprinted off. Turning back to Amelia, Lorenzo took a breath, as though preparing to say something important. "Amelia," he said gently, "I know you didn't want this marriage, and I didn't expect it to start this way. But I need you to trust me." His words were simple, but the way he spoke them, calm, quiet, sincere, sent a ripple through her chest. Amelia swallowed hard. "I don't know if I can trust you," she admitted softly. She expected him to look offended or dismissive. He didn't. Instead, he nodded slowly, accepting the truth with surprising grace. "Then let me earn it. Not because of the alliance, not because of your family, but because you are my wife now, and your safety is my responsibility." Her breath caught. Responsibility. Not possession, not dominance, not force. Responsibility.
It was the first time she sensed who Lorenzo might truly be beneath the power and reputation. A protector, not a captor. A man shaped by a violent world but not consumed by it. Before she could process the shift in her emotions, the soldier returned with news. "Car is ready, boss. We need to leave now." Lorenzo took Amelia's hand again, but this time his fingers intertwined with hers, as if anchoring her to something steadier, something warmer. They hurried to the back exit where a black armored car waited. Once inside, Amelia pressed her trembling hands to her lap, trying to steady her breathing. Lorenzo sat beside her, his presence filling the space with quiet strength. The car sped away from the chaos, and only when the city lights blurred past the tinted windows did Amelia finally exhale the breath she'd been holding. Lorenzo watched her for a moment and then spoke softly. "Your life is about to change, but I promise you something, Amelia." His eyes softened, the faintest trace of vulnerability flickering through them. "You will never face it alone." And in that moment, as the city faded behind them and the unknown future stretched ahead, Amelia felt something shift deep within her chest. A small, fragile thread of hope. Something she never thought she would feel on the night of a marriage she hadn't chosen. And she wondered if destiny truly was rewriting her story one heartbeat at a time.
The drive felt long, though in reality it wasn't. Maybe it was the shock settling into Amelia's bones, or the heaviness in her chest that refused to ease. The city lights blurred into streaks outside the tinted windows as the car wove through dim alleys and quiet streets, taking a route clearly designed to avoid pursuit. Lorenzo sat beside her with his elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped, gaze fixed out the front window. His posture was guarded, his jaw tight, yet she sensed that he was holding himself back, restraining the instincts of a man trained to fight, to retaliate, to dominate. Tonight had caught him off guard, too. She could feel it. When the car finally slowed, Amelia lifted her eyes and saw a gated estate looming ahead, large but not flashy. It wasn't the stereotypical Mafia mansion she had imagined. Instead, it was elegant in a quiet, understated way. A place built for safety, not intimidation. The gates opened automatically and the car rolled inside. Amelia's pulse quickened. This was her new home, her new life, her new reality. Everything she had known until now felt distant and unreachable, fading into something like a half-remembered dream. Lorenzo stepped out first, then extended a hand to help her out. Though she hesitated, she placed her hand in his. His grip was steady, grounding, and the instant her feet touched the pavement, she felt the faintest tremor run through her, a reminder that she was no longer on familiar ground. Lorenzo guided her inside, dismissing his men with a simple nod. Once the door closed behind them, the silence wrapped around them like a heavy blanket. Amelia glanced around the foyer, noticing the warm lighting, the polished wood, the subtle hints of softness, bookshelves, plants, framed art. Not what she expected from a Mafia boss. "You're safe here," Lorenzo said quietly, as if sensing her unease. Amelia swallowed, nodding, but feeling that safety was still an idea she didn't quite know how to hold on to. "Do you live alone?" she asked softly. Lorenzo hesitated. "I did." His voice carried a weight she didn't understand yet. "But now, this is your home too." The words were gentle, not possessive, careful, as though he didn't want to frighten her. She wondered how someone with such a dangerous reputation could speak with so much softness. He guided her to a sitting room where the soft glow of a fireplace lit the space. "Sit," he said, gesturing toward the couch, not as a command, but almost like a request. Amelia sat slowly, her hands curling nervously in her lap. Lorenzo remained standing for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts, then finally took a seat across from her. For the first time since the wedding began, they were alone, with no eyes watching, no expectations pressing down, no chaos demanding immediate action. "Amelia," he began, his voice steady but quiet. "What happened tonight was meant for me, not you. Someone wanted to send a message. They chose the worst moment to deliver it." Amelia's throat tightened. "Is this normal in your world?" she whispered. He didn't flinch. "Violence is normal," he admitted. "But an attack on a wedding? That's a declaration. Someone crossed a line." Amelia's stomach twisted with fear. "And what does that mean for us?" she asked, her voice cracking. He studied her for a long moment before answering, choosing his words with care. "It means I need to protect you more than ever. And I will." There was no hesitation in his tone, only certainty. She had expected dominance, control, coldness. Instead, she heard sincerity, almost protectiveness. It confused her. It softened something inside her she wasn't ready to name. She took a slow, shaky breath. "I don't know how to live in this world. I don't know the rules. I don't know the dangers. I don't even know you." Lorenzo leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees, gaze steady. "Then we'll take it slow. You'll learn what you need to know. I'll teach you. And as for knowing me..." He paused, letting the silence settle gently between them. "We have time." Something in her chest fluttered. Fear or hope? She couldn't tell. She looked away, unsure how to respond. After a moment, Lorenzo stood. "Come," he said softly. "I'll show you your room." She followed him up a sweeping staircase, her steps quiet on the polished floor. He stopped at a door near the end of the hall and opened it. Inside was a beautiful bedroom. Warm colors, soft lighting, flowers on the nightstand. Not extravagant, but inviting. Comfortable. Safe. "You can rest here tonight," he said. "If you need anything, my room is across the hall." Amelia blinked, surprised. "You're not expecting..." She couldn't finish the sentence, embarrassed and anxious. Lorenzo's expression softened immediately. "No," he said, gently. "I won't touch you. This marriage may have been arranged, but your comfort and your boundaries are yours. I won't cross them." Relief flooded her chest, so sharp and sudden that she almost felt dizzy. "Thank you," she whispered. Lorenzo nodded once. "Good night, Amelia." He turned to leave, but paused at the doorway, speaking without looking back. "For what it's worth, I'm glad it's you." Then he disappeared into the dim hallway. Amelia sat on the edge of the bed, her heart fluttering with confusion. This wasn't the man she expected. This wasn't the life she expected. Maybe destiny truly had other plans, plans she was only beginning to feel the first tremors of. The next morning arrived quietly, with soft sunlight spilling through the velvet curtains of Amelia's new bedroom. For a moment, she lay still, disoriented, her mind drifting between the chaotic events of the night before and the unfamiliar serenity of the room around her. The delicate floral wallpaper, the faint scent of lavender, the gentle hum of silence, nothing resembled her old life. It felt like waking up inside someone else's story, one she wasn't sure she belonged in. She rose slowly, her muscles stiff with tension, and crossed the room to the window. The view outside surprised her. Tall cypress trees surrounded the estate like silent guardians. A stone path led toward a small garden blooming with roses, violets, and white lilies. Birds perched on branches, singing as though the world outside was untouched by violence or fear. Amelia felt a strange ache in her chest, part longing, part confusion. How could a life so dangerous also hold moments of such peace? A soft knock came at her door. "Amelia," Lorenzo's voice called gently. "May I come in?" She hesitated, uncertain of the rules of this new world she was living in, but his tone carried no pressure, only respect. "Yes," she said quietly. The door opened and Lorenzo stepped inside, dressed in a crisp white shirt with sleeves rolled to his forearms, looking far too calm for a man whose wedding had been attacked hours earlier. His presence filled the room, not in an overpowering way, but in a steady, quietly protective one. "I wanted to check on you. Did you sleep at all?" She shrugged slightly. "A little." He nodded, as though he expected that. "I have something for you," he said, and handed her a small silver bracelet. Delicate, elegant, engraved with a simple symbol resembling intertwined olive branches. Amelia frowned slightly. "What is this?" "A tracker," he said honestly, "but also a protection charm. If you're ever in danger, it alerts me instantly." Amelia's breath caught. "Are you giving me a tracker?" she asked softly. She wasn't offended, more stunned by the practicality. Lorenzo watched her expression carefully. "I know it sounds extreme, but the people who attacked our wedding may come after us again. I need to know you're safe." He paused, his voice lowering with sincerity. "I won't control you, Amelia. You can go where you want, do what you want, but I must be able to protect you." She studied him then, the quiet certainty in his words, the lack of manipulation, the complete absence of force. Instead of feeling trapped, she felt safeguarded. "Okay," she whispered, surprising herself. A flicker of relief crossed his eyes, so subtle she would have missed it if she hadn't been watching him closely. He nodded once, then stepped back. "Breakfast is ready. I thought we could eat together." She followed him downstairs to a spacious kitchen with soft morning light and the scent of freshly brewed coffee. He had already set the table. Simple food, warm pastries, fruit, eggs. She blinked. "Did you make this?" Lorenzo looked almost embarrassed. "I woke early. Cooking is something I do when I need to think." She couldn't help the small, surprised smile that touched her lips. He noticed, and something warm flickered in his eyes. They ate quietly at first, the silence comfortable, not awkward. Every so often, Lorenzo would glance at her, his gaze gentle, checking if she needed anything. And every time, Amelia felt that same strange warmth stirring inside her, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel for him before. Trust, or the beginning of it. After breakfast, Lorenzo walked her through the estate, showing her the garden, the library, the studio room he said she could use for painting, and the private courtyard where she could sit whenever she needed quiet. He wasn't showing off. He was trying to make her feel at home. "This place is yours," he told her softly, "not because of the marriage contract, but because I want you to feel safe here." Amelia paused in the courtyard, staring at the sunlight filtering through the trees. "Lorenzo," she said gently. "Yes?" She hesitated, then spoke with honesty. "You're different from what I expected." "Different how?" She exhaled slowly. "Kinder." He froze, not visibly, but internally she could feel the shift. He looked away, jaw tightening slightly, as if her words struck some deep part of him he wasn't used to exposing. "I'm not always kind," he said quietly. "I can't be. Not in my world." He looked back at her, eyes softening. "But with you, I want to be." Her heart fluttered painfully, like a fragile bird caught between fear and hope. She didn't know what to say, so she simply nodded. The rest of the day passed gently. They talked lightly over tea. She explored the garden while Lorenzo took urgent calls related to the attack. Whenever she glanced his way, she found him looking at her, not intensely, not possessively, but with a quiet curiosity, as though trying to understand the woman he had unexpectedly been bound to. And every time their eyes met, Amelia felt herself breaking free a little more from the fear she had carried. As evening approached, Lorenzo joined her in the garden. The golden hour light softened his features, making him look almost unreal. "Amelia," he said, standing beside her, hands in his pockets. She looked up at him. "Yes?" He exhaled, the weight of responsibility hanging on his shoulders. "There's something I haven't told you yet." Her stomach tightened. "What is it?"
Lorenzo met her gaze, his eyes deep with a truth he could no longer hide. The attack yesterday wasn't just a message, it was a warning. Someone doesn't want us married. She felt the air leave her lungs. Who? She whispered. His answer came like a quiet thunder. Someone in my own family. The revelation struck her like a wave, confusing, terrifying, shattering the fragile peace she had begun to feel. Lorenzo watched the fear flicker in her eyes and gently placed a hand over hers, steady and reassuring. But I swear to you, I will find out who it is and I will protect you, no matter what. For the first time, Emilia didn't feel like she was drowning in this new life. She felt guarded, cherished, and maybe, just maybe, wanted. The revelation settled over Emilia like a cold mist, creeping into her bones and refusing to loosen its grip. Someone in Lorenzo's own family had tried to sabotage their wedding. Not an enemy from another territory, not a rival clan, but someone who shared his blood, his history, his legacy. It reshaped everything. Every glance she had witnessed at the ceremony, every toast, every polite smile. Suddenly, the world around her felt smaller, darker, more dangerous than she had ever imagined. And yet, through it all, Lorenzo stood beside her, a silent fortress. For the next few days, Emilia watched him navigate his world with a new lens. He worked long hours, speaking to advisors and family members in low, clipped tones, his jaw tense with unspoken frustration. She saw how carefully he concealed his vulnerability, how the weight of betrayal settled on his shoulders like lead. But whenever he turned to her, something softened, something warm, something unguarded. He treated her like a partner, not an obligation. He asked for her opinions. He explained what he could. He protected her without suffocating her. And Emilia began to change too. She found solace in the studio room he had given her, painting her fears, her hopes, her confusion in strokes of color she couldn't express with words. She explored the garden as if learning the rhythms of her new life. She talked to the house staff, discovering that Lorenzo treated everyone with respect, earning their loyalty, not through fear, but through fairness. Slowly, cautiously, she started to see him not as a dangerous stranger, but as a man shaped by a world he never asked for, a man learning how to be gentle for her sake. But the illusion of peace shattered one evening when Lorenzo returned home later than usual, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes shadowed by exhaustion. Emilia met him at the door, instinctively sensing the shift in his demeanor. "What happened?" she asked softly. He hesitated, studying her face, as if debating how much to reveal. Then his voice dropped into something quiet and heavy. "I found out who gave the order," he said. Emilia's heart thudded painfully. "Who?" He closed his eyes for a moment, a small, subtle gesture of grief, before answering, "My uncle, the man who raised me after my parents died." Emilia inhaled sharply. A betrayal born of power struggles, ambition, fear, or something darker. "Why would he do that?" she whispered. Lorenzo's jaw clenched, the truth tasting bitter on his tongue. "Because he wanted control. Our marriage gives me full rights to the Northern Territories through your family. He feared I would grow stronger than him." Emilia swallowed hard. "What will you do?" His eyes met hers, and she was struck again by the quiet intensity within them. "I confronted him," he said. "He denied nothing." His voice broke just slightly, barely noticeable, but enough for her to feel it. "He told me I was becoming too soft, too distracted." His gaze held hers meaningfully. Emilia understood. The implication had been clear. She was the distraction, the threat, the reason his uncle felt compelled to act. She stepped closer without thinking, her instincts moving faster than her fear. "Lorenzo, none of this is your fault." He smiled, a tired one, but real. "Maybe, but it changes everything." He exhaled slowly. "I took away his authority today. I removed him from all decision-making. He's under house arrest until I decide what comes next." Amelia felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Lorenzo had chosen her, or chosen to protect her, even at the cost of turning against his own family. The weight of that decision pressed heavily on her heart. She reached out tentatively and touched his arm. "What do you need from me?" she asked quietly. His expression softened, the tension around his eyes loosening for the first time that day. "Just stay," he said. "Just be here." It was such a simple request, yet so raw, so vulnerable. Amelia felt something deep and fragile break open inside her. She nodded. "I'm here," she whispered. Days turned into weeks as Lorenzo rebuilt his alliances, removed corrupt players, and restructured his inner circle. Through every challenge, every late-night strategy meeting, every moment of frustration, Amelia stayed by his side, not as a silent observer, but as a steady presence. Their dinners became conversations. Their conversations became trust, and that trust began to blossom into something warm and heart-achingly gentle. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Lorenzo found her in the garden, tending to the roses beneath the soft glow of lantern lights. He approached her slowly, as though stepping into a moment he didn't want to disturb. "You've made this place feel alive," he said. Amelia looked up, her fingers brushing delicate petals. It already was alive. It just needed someone to see it. He smiled, a real, full smile that transformed his entire face, even if only for a breath. "Amelia," he said, voice quiet but deep, "I know this marriage started in the worst way, and I know I dragged you into a world you never wanted." She shook her head gently. "You didn't drag me. Circumstances did." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something soft, almost hesitant. "But I want you to know something. From the moment I saw you walking towards me at the altar, I knew I would never let anything hurt you." Her heart raced, soft, fluttering like the fragile wings of a butterfly. "Lorenzo," she whispered, unsure how to respond. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face with a gentleness that didn't match the hard edges of his life. "You don't have to say anything," he murmured. "I just needed you to know." The night was warm, quiet, intimate, and for the first time, Amelia didn't feel like a prisoner of fate. She felt chosen. She felt seen. She felt cherished. In the days that followed, their relationship deepened. Still soft, still careful, still respectful, but undeniably growing into something real. They learned each other's rhythms, each other's fears, each other's hopes. And though the dangers of Lorenzo's world still lingered in the shadows, Amelia found herself walking beside him with a new strength, a new understanding, and a heart that no longer trembled with fear, but with possibility. One afternoon, standing on the terrace overlooking the estate, Lorenzo joined her, slipping a hand gently into hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, she intertwined her fingers, feeling the warmth of him settle into her palm. He glanced at her with quiet wonder. "So, you're staying?" he asked softly. Amelia smiled, a real, unguarded smile that reached her eyes. "I'm staying." Lorenzo exhaled, relief wash across his face like a silent confession. "Then Destiny really did have other plans," he murmured. She looked up at him, her heart steady, her voice soft. "Yes," she whispered, leaning into him ever so slightly, "and I'm finally ready for them." And as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in gold and rose hues, Amelia realized a marriage she never wanted had become a life she never knew her heart needed.